Welcome to the Tuesday night show. It's a Victory Tuesday once again. Um, it's one Hafeman, bro, and a Bruce tonight, and maybe a Browner if he comes in. We'll see. We got to keep it with the B's. Ben wasn't available, so we got a substitute with the B, so I don't get too screwed up. So Bruce is here. Browner might come in, maybe not, if he was available. But tonight's show, we're not really even going to talk. We're not going to do game review. We're not going to talk too much about too many players. We're really going to focus on Matt LaFleur. Tonight is the LaFleur show. So it's really all about him. He said some interesting things yesterday. He said some interesting things in recent weeks. And how he's not a name that's right up there at the top again for Coach of the Year. I'm not sure, but I think we can kind of revisit that case too and make a case for him. So, Bruce, thanks for coming on and chatting with me tonight about Packers and really focusing in on Matt LaFleur. I know you were sending things back and forth. You thought some things he said Monday were pretty interesting too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the invite. It'll be exciting to talk about him tonight. But yeah, I thought the conference that he had was very telling with the media, and there's definitely some things I think we should talk about tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are on this as well as people in the chat.
So we got, the Packers got the week off, the bye week, because they got the number one seed. So we don't have a game coming up to worry about. So this week will be a little lighter. Friday will be pretty light. I think we'll just talk about the NFC games coming up over the weekend and not get too in depth, but kind of see what we think about certain matchups. But tonight, let's focus on Matt LaFleur. So Matt LaFleur, as you're probably well aware, he wasn't really a big name before he got the job in Green Bay. He was a guy that, he was interviewed. A lot of other names were thrown around. Certain people thought Bruce Arians, more experienced coach, some flashier coaches, whatever. I think the first guy I really heard talk about LaFleur was Jason Wilde, so I do have to give him credit for that, although he talks a little too much when he gives his questions, but I can relate, Jason Wilde. And anyway, all of a sudden everyone found out Matt LaFleur gets the job, and it was quick, and it was like, wow, here's our guy, and he's presented, and we're like, wow, who is this guy? Not a lot of experience. He's a young coach. He coached a very different offense. The only year he got to be the play caller, it was like interesting choice. Seemed like he was pretty low key in his addresses to the media, even when he was introduced. He was a man of fewer words than Mike McCarthy or other coaches were, and also seemed to maybe not have that kind of dominant demeanor to kind of command the room, stuff like that you usually look for from a head coach. All those things, but he's worked out pretty well in 2 years, right? I mean, 13-3 his first year as the head coach, 13-3 this year. That's never been done in Green Bay by a first year and second, a coach in his first 2 years. So, and the 2 seed last year, just barely, and the 1 seed this year in his conference. So pretty impressive. Bruce, what have you thought about LaFleur as he came in, but also kind of how he's kind of evolved a little bit? I think we've seen him come out of his shell a little bit here as well over the last year or so.
Yeah, I didn't know much about him when he was hired. I'm on a blog which is Wisconsin sports blog, and there's some really good guys on there as far as they have coaching experience and things like that. And the guy that leads the blog actually thought they should hire LaFleur, which was really interesting because I didn't know anything about him and a lot of us didn't. But he ended up getting hired, and I was like, well, that's really interesting because this guy that runs the blog actually he's a high school coach, and he coaches. I can't remember where he coaches in Wisconsin, but he does coach a pretty good football team there, so he really does know his stuff. So when he got hired, I saw his first press conference, and I was like, he seems like a nice guy. Does he have what it takes to be able to run a team and do what he needs to do, especially on the offensive side with Rodgers? Because we all know Rodgers can be difficult to deal with. I mean, he's a diva, right? He's great at what he does, but every great quarterback's a little bit of a diva, and they think they know a lot of things. And he was in the league for a long time, 15 years or whatever it was. So obviously, there was a lot of talk about him and LaFleur not meshing possibly, or Rodgers thinking he knew more than LaFleur. But I'll tell you what, LaFleur has come in and he's really created a great relationship with Rodgers, he's changed the culture of this team within, I mean, really within a year, he changed the culture of the team because we went to 13-3. I mean, let's be honest, with getting his massages and stuff, you know, when that was
Allegedly,
going on,
allegedly. Come on.
we didn't know what was going on there. And honestly, I think after MM's brother, died, I think he was kind of out. And there was a lot of issues going on. And LaFleur came in and he did a phenomenal job. He really did. For as young as he is, he really has done a great job. Of course, he's from the Shanahan tree, which, it seems like that's a pretty good tree of coaches. So I'm really, really impressed with what he's done. I mean, offensively, you cannot complain at what he's done as far as the running game and the offensive line and how Rodgers has, been able to use the play action and obviously, throw shorter, quicker passes and get rid of the football. I mean, it's amazing, really, when you think about it, what he's done in the last 2 years and has a 26-6 record. I mean, he's in Lombardi range right now. If he starts to win Super Bowls, he's in that range. And that, I mean, Lombardi, come on. I mean,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, it absolutely impresses me, but never thought this was going to go this way. Just didn't know who he was. So
I'm kind of confused too a little bit by obviously coming off a couple of down years for the Packers. One in which Aaron Rodgers was hurt, and then the immediate season where he gets hurt in the first game and then plays through that knee and all that stuff, and they don't have success. No one obviously expected a 13-3 season last year in 2019. No one thought that was possible for the Packers. Nobody. And then this season they do it, but then all we heard last year was it was fraudulent. It wasn't legitimate. They had all these breaks or this or that, or just got the right play at the right time, whatever it was. All these excuses. Weren't actually a real 13-3 team somehow, even though that's what their record said at the end of the year. I'm not sure why people, if that's what they thought, all these pundits and all these other folks, why they're not more impressed with this season's results. I'm confused by that. And it really kind of surprises me, with how much people put them down last year, and then they come back and they replicate that with a more difficult schedule. And I understand Rodgers has played awesome, so a lot of credit can go there and be deflected from the head coach and the team. But I just don't get it. I guess if you're Matt LaFleur, you can't win. Last year, Aaron Rodgers has kind of a mild season in terms of statistics and production, although he played well. And you go 13-3, nobody gives you credit. This year, Aaron Rodgers blows up, and nobody gives you credit. I don't get it.
Honestly, I've got a couple of theories
Okay.
on this as far as Matt LaFleur, but it also relates to Rodgers to a certain extent. But I think number one, it's Green Bay. We're the smallest city in the NFL. Nobody gives us credit because nobody cares. I don't think we make money for the NFL, so they don't care. And that's just my opinion. I mean, I don't think the NFL really likes the Packers, to be honest with you. I mean, we have 13 titles. We have the most titles of any franchise, and we keep winning. But I really don't think they want us to win. I think they want the KCs of the world and the Giants, the New York teams and the New Englands and all that type of stuff to win because that's where the money is. And again, this is just my opinion. I don't have any stats to prove any of this or any information, but that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons. And it's just like Rodgers, he gets no respect either. And I don't know if it's necessarily Green Bay. I think that's part of it. But I mean, even when they're talking about the MVP with Rodgers, for instance, I was watching some of those shows, and they brought up Josh Allen right away and Tom Brady, which he's not even in the MVP conversation. And they went on and on and on about these guys. And it's like, aren't we supposed to be talking about Rodgers getting the MVP? Because that's what the title of the show was, or the title of the video that I was watching. So honestly, I think that's number one, and then I think number two is because Rodgers is there. I think LaFleur is not getting as much respect either. I think because Rodgers has been so consistent for so long and been so good for so long, I just think he's not in the conversation because of that reason either. They might think, well, Rodgers, he's got all these wins. He is one of the better, quarterbacks of, at least in the top 10, of all time. Obviously, that's what they say. I don't say that, but of course, I think he's number one of all time, but that's what they say, right? So I think it comes down to those two things, or and there's some other reasons in there too, because I just don't think people like Rodgers in general, for instance, either, and LaFleur and how they interact, because they're more honest and they're more upfront, and they don't really, they're not political. They come out and say the way it is, and I think LaFleur's kind of like that too, which I like about him.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think it comes down to the Green Bay thing in the smallest city, and nobody, really caring about Green Bay, and then Rodgers. Oops, I thought I lost you for a second there. And then
No,
Rodgers,
I'm just sharing. I'm showing
yeah,
Matt LaFleur because the other thing about him is he's kind of pretty. I mean, the female fans, the female Packer fans, certainly enjoy looking at him a lot more than they did, any of the previous coaches. Let's be honest. All right, he's an attractive guy.
Yeah.
All right. So,
yeah.
Are they holding that against him? Is it that looks thing? They're holding the looks against him too.
It could be.
Come on, man.
Yeah,
Shouldn't be ashamed of looking like a nice, good-looking guy. Why not? Who cares?
Well, and let's talk about the guys that are in the conversation for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, that's weird. Let's go over last year, okay, Bruce. So last year, here was the final results. I wanted to look this up because I'm like, what? Okay, 13-3 record last year, first year of the Packers turned the team around. That had 6 wins the year before. Okay, so last year, John Harbaugh won the Coach of the Year. Now the Ravens had a great year. I think they were 14-2, all that great stuff. And everyone see it. That's nice. That's great. And he probably had never won it before. And he's a really good coach. Like John Harbaugh, great coach, no doubt. But he ended up with 27.5 of the votes. Okay, the second place vote getter was Kyle Shanahan with 14.5 votes. And then Matt LaFleur got 3 votes last year. That's it. Mike Tomlin got 2. Sean McDermott got 2. Peyton got 1. That was it. So, I don't know. I mean, they won 1 less game. It was his first year with the team. And as opposed to Harbaugh, who's been with the Ravens for a very long time, right? Had an established culture, had everything he wanted in place. LaFleur's taken over all this new stuff. Doesn't get much credit there. Then they come back and they replicate 13-3 this year and in more impressive fashion, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think up until last week or the week before, I even heard a single person mention his name as, well, he should probably be in that conversation for Coach of the Year. I mean, I don't get it. What does he got to do?
I don't either. And Tomlin even being in the conversation. Come on, they lost 3 in a row.
Right. Last year, they didn't have a great year.
Yeah, I mean, they were 11-0. Yeah, sure. But then they would lose 3 in a row. They really should have lost 4, to be honest with you. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then you have the Miami coach. I mean, yeah, okay, he did a decent job. But come on, they're 10-6. They didn't make the playoffs. Year. Why is he in the conversation? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever that LaFleur is out of the conversation. It's kind of like Tunyon not getting the Pro Bowl, to Ingram, from the Giants. It's ridiculous. And again, this is the reason why I say it's Green Bay, in the smallest city in the NFL. There's something that they don't like about the Green Bay Packers, and I think there's something there, because it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense at all.
You want to know something that's really annoying that I don't watch much Colin Cowherd. I haven't for a long time, since I swore him off and I listened to Eckes, 5-6 months ago. But Colin Cowherd, blasts Green Bay. He always, every time he talks about Green Bay, he always talks about how it's no one ever wants to go there. It's a small, tiny city. There's nothing to do. The weather's terrible. This is everything. Terrible. All he does is put it down. And then, so he says this all the time. Every time he has an interview with a Packer, he's got to ask them, especially if it's a younger guy or newer to the team. Oh, well, how did you adjust to Green Bay? Because there's really nothing to do there. But it's just put down from that guy. Well, a couple of weeks ago, when I actually watched a segment he did, because I wanted to hear what he was going to say now following, Rodgers tearing it up, because he had said, bashed him for such a long time. I'm like, what are you saying now? he professed, he said, Green Bay is actually one of the few NFL cities that he's never been to. And I'm just like,
yeah,
what the?
but
You've never even been there, and you're sitting here.
And you don't even know what we're like. Nice.
Jesus. Unbelievable. Anyway, I mean, not that it's surprising from that guy. It's still just stupid and pissed me off. All right. So Matt LaFleur is, I think he needs to be seriously considered. I think he should win it this year. Like, well, I get the Bills coach. Okay. Good contender there. Fine. Some of those other guys, fine. Stefanski got in. And the Browns made the playoffs. Okay, great. But isn't that exactly what LaFleur did last year?
Yeah.
Right? He took over a team that had a couple of rough years in a row and they turned them around. So I don't get it. I don't get that. So it better come down to LaFleur and the Bills coach. Those guys are the top two, in my opinion. So
agreed 100%. And the thing is we know he's not going to get it. Ultimately we know that. But the best way to get back at the journalists in the NFL, win the whole dang thing.
It's just something different. I mean, this year just kind of feels different. It does. I mean, I'm always an optimist with the Packers. I always feel like, yeah, they could do it. I believed in 16 when they were on the run. I believed in 14. I believed in 11. I believe in all, 12. I was hopeful. And 2013. But oh man, this year just something feels different. It just does. And I feel like the significance of it, the fact it's been 10 years, all these things affect the Aaron Rodgers is later in his career and then playing so great this season. And as we've talked about on this show a bunch of times, the number of guys that are in contracts that, I mean, the team's going to look way different next year.
Yep.
So it just feels like everything is kind of the focus, the seriousness by the team, the fact that they've really done such a good job with the COVID situation and all of that and been responsible and really just kind of honed in on football just gives me a feeling like this could be it. This could be the year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And the difference here is, let's think about this. We don't give the offensive line enough credit.
Hey, Bernard. Bernard's around. How you doing?
Oh, there you go. Hey, Bernard. We don't give the offensive line enough credit. I mean, Rodgers has only been sacked 19 times, right, all year, and really there's been a couple of games that he's gotten maybe a little bit more sacks lately, and I think that's just more of him even saying that I ran into those sacks, a little bit. Plus, I think we're getting blitzed a little bit more than we have. But the point is that he's so clean compared to last year and years prior that's the thing. If we can stay healthy on the offensive line, plus we have 3 solid running backs. Jonesy, obviously, we know what he can do. Williams is a solid, backup who can block on third down and catch out of the backfield as well. And then you have Dylan, who's out an up and comer and can pound people into submission, especially defensive linemen, as we saw against last game against Tennessee. So there's a different feel that way offensively, I think. And I will say defensively, I'm a little optimistic because you have them playing a little bit better against the run. And I will say, after watching the game on Sunday again, I will say Pettin played a little bit more base 3-4 than I thought he did, which is good news. So he's starting to figure it out, I think, a little bit. But also, I think LaFleur is kind of pushing him that direction a little bit too. So.
Yeah, I think the more, okay, so I've got a video. We're going to do an episode maybe this next week, or maybe it's down the road. It's when I have enough time to put this together and find some old clips of stuff we've said earlier in the year, kind of leading up, kind of like a Hafeman highlights and lowlights kind of episode where we don't actually do a full show. We just play a bunch of clips and maybe laugh at ourselves. But when the picks were made this offseason, especially the Jordan Love pick and some of the other ones, I was really feeling like Matt LaFleur had a lot to do with those and had influence on them. And then the more and more I've seen, I feel like that's not the case. I feel like those were Gutekunst's decisions. And I feel like Matt LaFleur is making everything work with what he's been given. And I think he needs a lot of credit for that because there's plenty of coaches. I mean, you can throw all these players together, GMs and front office people, they put the team together, they see how they think it's going to work and whatever. But the coaches got to make it all fit together and make it work and train the guys and get the right guys in the right spots and, time it all. Not to mention, he's done a great job at that management, keeping the team healthy, but also in-game decisions. I think, when was the last time we had a coach that made this good a job at in-game decisions? Because I can go back. MM was one of the worst. Like he I think he was really good. I think he was really good at structuring the team, keeping them organized, leading the group. But then he just blow all these in-game decisions all the time. And then you had, Sherman and other guys. I mean, I go all the way back to Holmgren. The last time we had a guy, and Holmgren was too conservative for my taste. Mm-hmm. So I was not on board with his decisions half the time too. So it's like I love Matt LaFleur's aggressiveness. I think he's one of our best coaches in my lifetime for sure at actually coaching in game.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I mean, he's proved that with some of the decisions he's made in game. Now, the great thing about him too is he comes out and he'll admit if he thought he was wrong, in press conferences after the game. He'll say stuff like that, which McCarthy never admitted that stuff. He would always say, it's we didn't do enough here, we didn't make enough plays, or pad level was too high, or whatever he ended up saying. So
fundamentals.
Yeah, fundamentals.
Win your one-on-one matchups.
Exactly.
We got to go back and emphasize.
Yeah.
Re-emphasize that.
Yep. It was his offense, winning one-to-one matchups. So we get that. And LaFleur is a little bit different as far as scheme and all those types of things. But yeah, I mean, an example of his aggressiveness and his smarts is last game, not even a second into the game, he's challenging a call, which we talked about a little bit after the game. I mean, McCarthy wouldn't have done that. I just don't see him doing that. And he did it because he said he got the booth upstairs told him to do it. They thought it was good. But at the same time, he came out and said, you know what? I still think it was the right call, and I still think he was in bounds, which I agree. And I think we all do. And it's not just because we're Packer fans. I mean, you can see that he touched the ball, and the ball moved before he went out of bounds. So, again, I think you do that call, all day long, twice on Sundays, and that's the point of the aggressiveness of LaFleur and what he's going to do to make sure they can get the upside or win the ball game, no matter what. So I really like LaFleur and what he's done. And he's improved a lot second year compared to first year, to be honest with you. You already see that. So it's exciting stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think he's just more confident. I think he's more comfortable in making decisions. And also, but I mean, I just think from even, since he's been the head coach, I think he's really moved into that role really well. And he does a not only good job of play calling through the game and keeping on top of that, but also just kind of those decisions that the head coach has to make. I think he's been, made the right call. He knows when to challenge. McCarthy always did that. Like I joked the other day, but it was true. Like he would always challenge the plays. He would say, like, a lot of times he would challenge a play. He's like, well, because that was just a big play there, So he would challenge based on the situation that if it went their way, that would have been a big, change or momentum swing. Whereas LaFleur is challenging the plays that actually he has a good case of winning versus, no matter what time in the game it is.
Right.
It's like, hey, this is a call that was wrong. I see that. Those are the ones I'm going to challenge. I'm not challenging based on my emotional level or my thought process of here's a big momentum swing in the game or something like that.
Yep, absolutely. I agree 100%.
All right, Ben's not here, but he's in the chat and he's trying to get us off track because we're trying to talk about Matt LaFleur. And he's like, hey, guys, 3 Packers had 90 plus PFF grades for the week. Who do you think they were? And I don't know. Who do you think they were, Bruce? I guess.
Well, Aaron Rodgers for one, obviously.
I don't know. He probably didn't get it. That's probably why Ben's bringing it up. Because if Rogers got a big grade, Ben probably wouldn't put it out there.
You
You know Ben.
I do know Ben. I'm
Billy
gonna
Turner.
I'm gonna say obviously. Well, I was gonna say Adams, but I mean, he had a solid game, but not a wonderful game. Patrick probably, I would say. Probably Billy Turner, to be honest with you. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that. Um, I want to say Aaron Jones, but I just don't know. I mean, I think he did because he had like 34 yards in the air. He had a touchdown. He had like what was it, 64, or 70 yards in the ground. So it was about 100 yards, a little over 100 yards, all-purpose yards, and a touchdown. So I think he was very efficient. I would say those guys. That's what I would say. Offensively, I don't know if he's talking about defensively and offensively as well, but I would say on the offensive side, that's what would be my guess.
I think he's just could be defensive or offensive. So,
well, defensive. I mean, Jair should be there for sure. He had a great game.
They do love Jair, and he's a guy that's hard to notice sometimes because they just don't throw at him too much.
Yeah.
So he likely was one of them. I'm gonna say him, and my God, are they gonna say Zadarius Smith? I'm gonna say Zadarius Smith. No, Rashawn Gary. I'm gonna say Rashawn Gary, Jair, and
how about Amos?
Aaron Jones, because otherwise Ben wouldn't bring it up.
Yeah, probably true. Jonesy, I'm sure has it.
All right, Ben, you can tell us. And actually, Aaron Jones he missed a cut on one of those runs. Ben, he could have had a much bigger run.
Yeah,
he read it wrong.
Yep, he doesn't miss those very often, but he did miss it. There's no.
I know, but you notice how Ben doesn't slam him when he misses this, one play here or there. But another guy, he does.
Yes, he does.
Oh, Ben says all three are on defense. Mom is here. Mom says she loves Aaron Rodgers. Good mom. At least one of us got understood, Mom. We got it right. I do want to get back to LaFleur, but there's another piece of news, Bruce. I don't know if you're probably aware of this, but both Leroy Butler and Charles Woodson, Pro Football Hall of Fame finalists, announced today. So
it's awesome. Yeah. Well, cool. Seawood should get in. I mean, there shouldn't be any issues with that.
Right.
But obviously Butler, it's always an iffy thing, with him. I mean, he should be in a ready, in my opinion, but you know how that goes. I mean, you got Peyton Manning, I think, this year, and a couple other guys that are kind of, on top there. So I don't know. It's going to be one of those big ifs for Butler again, but he's got the resume, and he should make it. But whether he's going to, that's a good question.
Yeah. So, second year in a row, he's a finalist. So
hopefully the second year gets him in. I mean,
hopefully, because he deserves it, and some of those guys too. It's like, I mean, you see some of these guys, weird stuff happens. Kevin Green, passed away earlier this year. So I mean, just last week or so. So it's like you never know, and you want those guys are still alive and they deserve it. Like get them in there so they can go through the experience and have all that. I mean, it's still a great honor after death, but and your family can be there for it and all that stuff. But man, I mean, for those players who play the game, who put all of it into the career, for them to have that Hall of Fame experience, I think is critical. So, Leroy, we're hoping for you, buddy, this year. Pulling for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. We got anything else going here that is distracting us? I'm going to be. Oh, okay. Ben, I think finally gives it to us. Amos was graded the highest at 94 plus.
He's been playing well.
Gary and Jair had 90 plus grades.
Yep. So no offensive players got 90 plus, really? Wow.
No. Well, there you go. But yeah, I mean, if those defensive guys can keep it up, that'd be nice. I do want to get back to Matt LaFleur, though. Enough about players. Matt LaFleur said some interesting things yesterday. There's a couple of things that stuck out. And you texted about one of them, Bruce. And that was that Matt LaFleur, for the second time in a few weeks now, kind of calling out his defensive coach and the scheme of having players not playing aggressive enough, not being in a position to make a play when they should be playing differently. So what did you make of that?
Yeah, it was interesting because he he mentioned that he likes that we're not giving up big plays, which is good. I mean, we've improved in that area, but he said, I think we need to be more aggressive at certain times of the game. And I think what he's saying, and I think he even mentioned tight man, to be honest with you, which I have said numerous times. We can't play tight man all the time. You can't do that. But Jer is a lockdown corner. There should be no reason why he shouldn't be man to man and locking down the number one receiver every single game. We have our safeties playing well, so Savage can play on a tight end consistently. And Amos, you can kind of alternate those guys, possibly, and then they can play up at the line of scrimmage. Um, Shannon Sullivan's been kind of inconsistent lately, but he's still done a pretty good job overall. The only weakness is Kevin King, and I don't know if that's why they have him playing back a little bit, but he mentioned specifically that play on 3rd and 3 on Sunday, where he said, we were playing 10 yards off the ball, and he said, I think we need to be more aggressive and be up on that guy. And I mean, all of us were yelling. I think we're all yelling at the TV and looking at saying, why are you 10 yards back on a 3rd and 3? And all they did was do a pitch and catch, and it was a first down. So I think he's getting a little bit more in the defensive room, and he's getting into Pettin's ear, because as you see, all of a sudden we did some things differently against Tennessee. We're playing a little bit more base in 3-4. Obviously, snacks is helpful. Coming in and being able to rotate with Kenny Clark. You had mentioned that, I think, the other day, Jason. So I think that's helpful too. So hopefully we see more of that stuff moving forward. And I think we have to play that way in the playoffs. I mean, I do. I mean, I think we play better as a defense when we play that way. You can mix it up, of course, and play some zone and do those things, when you have to. But man, I mean, you use your players to your strengths, and I think we haven't been doing that as much as we should have been the whole season, but we're doing it late, and I think that's because of Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, there's definitely been some influence. I think there was influence last year, early in the year, when they gave a bunch of big plays, and then all of a sudden, he talked in the media multiple times about we can't give up all these big plays, and then Pettin's adjustment to that was to just completely back off and play soft and completely change the way they were playing, and then they were a much less effective defense. Then this year, those are the plays that make me kind of crazy, like the 3rd downs. If you're going to play off on 1st down because you're not sure if they're going to run or whatever, that's fine. But 3rd downs, any distance, I look at the defensive alignment and I think, do you want to actually stop them from getting a 1st down in this play? Or are you just trying to not give up a touchdown on this play? Like,
Yep.
Stop them from getting the 1st down. That's the defense I want played there. Not, let's just make sure they don't get a touchdown on this play, guys. No. You did what you needed to do on 1st and 2nd down. It is 3rd down. Play to get them off the field. Play to get yourself off the field and get the ball back to your offense. Why, in those instances, are all of a sudden you're backing way off just to make sure you don't give up a score on those plays?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
play up, and if they beat you over the top, they beat you over the top. Tip your cap and move on.
And you know what? Our safeties are good enough where I think, we can do that. And again, Kevin King is a weakness, but at the same time, you can bring a safety over to help in that area at times if you need to. But I think that's where Matt LaFleur has been a significant voice in the room on that side of things, is being more aggressive and making sure that we are up more on those guys. And I get sometimes playing back a little bit further. At times when maybe it's 3rd and 14, you're 10 yards back or 8 yards back because throw it in front of them, make the tackle. Okay, I get that. But when it's 3rd and 3 to 3rd and 5, it makes no sense. And I think, to be honest with you, that's it's not that we've been super bad on 3rd down on defense, but I think that's part of the reason why we're on the field a lot more or a lot more than we should be, and giving up those 3rd downs and those longer 3rd downs, because we're back 10 yards, and it doesn't make any sense to me why we play that way. But again, I think you mentioned this earlier in the year. You thought Penton was kind of doing that because we got beat so bad last year with big plays that he was overcompensating to make sure that we didn't get beat deep, which, it has worked, but at the same time, they stay on the field, all the time, and then they get tired, and, at least for the first half a season, maybe three-quarters of the season, that didn't work very well, but now they've changed it up a little bit and things are a little different. So, but
This is straight vodka, by the way, Bruce.
this is straight wine right here. A
I'm
little
just kidding.
different, a little different today. I mean, I don't usually do this, but I figured, what, let's do something
I'm rehydrating. It's just water. Um, yeah, it is something. It's obviously the team plays better, and almost all defenses play better when you can be aggressive. And this team has to use its physicality with its corners, and you do that by getting up and pressing and throwing off the timing, and allows the pass rush to be more effective too. It just works together. So they gotta continue to do that. They have to continue to play more base, like we said, to be able to stop the run. Now they didn't do as much of that last week as they did the previous week, and so hopefully they figure that out in the playoffs. But again, it's going to be based on opponent. I will say that too about LaFleur. Another point is he has adjusted well game plan wise week to week based on what they feel are the strengths and the weaknesses of the defenses they're going against. So I've been impressed with that too. I think he's very good at coming up with an effective plan. Now, we've heard about, is he that good at halftime adjustments? Because sometimes in the second half they haven't been that effective, or they come out flat, or whatever. I don't know about all that exactly, because there's a lot behind that. Because it could be just the players not holding up their end of the bargain, and sometimes it's execution and whatever, or stupid things just happen, like you fumble a punt or a kickoff or whatever. But in terms of the plan he comes up with, his plans usually work. So I've been impressed with that too.
Yeah, I mean, I must say I've been one of the worst critics of Patton. I really have, and I've called for maybe not having him next year. We'll see how the playoffs go, but I agree with you. He has done a pretty good job, especially lately with in-game adjustments, and especially after halftime, it seems like the defense has played pretty well, especially the last 3 weeks or so, maybe 4 weeks. Um, they've really given up a lot less yards and a lot less points. To be honest with you, they've a lot better in the red zone. So obviously, what he's doing is working as of late. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see what we do after this year if things go well in the playoffs. I mean, I don't know if there's a better choice out there. To be honest with you, I don't know. You know, what defensive coaches are going to be available. Maybe not anything better. Um, and at the same time, we really have improved defensively as far as um, yardage. What are we, 13th in yards, or we might even be top 10 in yards. I think we're close to top 10 in points. And last year we were around 15 to 17, I think, in both of those areas. So it's not like we've gotten worse. Statistically wise, we've gotten better. So it's going to be interesting on what happens. But let's just hope he continues to do what he needs to do in the playoffs, and our defense continues to play well, because we're going to need him to do that in order to win a title. No question about it. So
Yeah, I mean, I was going with LaFleur there. You want to talk about Pettin? I know you do, because you want to get into it.
sorry,
He wants to. I don't think Mike Pettin. Just remember this: Mike Pettin was not Matt LaFleur's choice, right? He was a holdover,
it's true.
and Matt LaFleur had his first head coaching gig, and Pettin was previously a head coach, and so I think there were some safety reasons to keep him around. Plus, there's the contractual reasons and the financial reasons for the team, because hey, he could have replaced Pettin, but Pettin was still going to get money from the Packers for how many more years, right? A couple more years. So that was the deal. Um, so anyway, I think they, for the first year, I think there was a lot of that, and then he said, well, let's give him one more try because we saw some improvement, we saw some of these things, whatever. But Ben said this before too. I'm sure Matt LaFleur knows a young defensive coach or somebody or whatever, maybe somebody that's on Shanahan's staff right now, that he could bring in and promote to a D coordinator and feel just fine about it. So I don't think Mike Pettin is making a pass this year. We hope that the Packers defense performs well in the playoffs, because they're going to need it. But I don't I think the players are playing much better, and maybe his scheme has been better, but I still think it's more player produced improvements than scheme making them more improved.
Well, yeah, and I agree. But and to Matt LaFleur, I think it's Matt LaFleur's voice in the defensive room as well. I mean, and you can see it when he talks in the press conferences. He always throws a few things in there that makes you think that he is talking more to Pettine and saying, "Hey, look, we need to do some things differently if we're gonna be successful in the playoffs." And and I think this was a couple of weeks ago. If we're gonna get the number one seed, we need to do some things differently. We can't keep playing the way we're playing. So I think it's a combination of those two communicating, and that's another thing that I think Matt LaFleur is really good at is his communication with his players and with his coaches. I think has been really really good. Obviously, I'm not there. I don't know, but you just can kind of see the way he is and the way his coaches talk in the press conferences and kind of the way people talk about Matt is he just is there to talk to them and find out what's going on, what do we need to improve on, what do we need to do better, for you and for us to make the team better. And I think that's been a phenomenal thing that he does really really well for a young coach. That's just my opinion. So. And I think that's why they've been so good on both sides of the ball and better on the defensive side of the ball lately. So
Yeah, Rogers has said multiple times about how good the communication has been with LaFleur, and that's one of the things he really enjoys about the relationship, but also just the communication part has been fantastic from the start with him.
well, he's not
Yeah.
getting massages like McCarthy was.
Well, McCarthy, we know he wasn't the best communicator. I mean, he was he was entertaining sometimes because he's a little growly and stuff like that in press conferences. But Lafleur has his personality come out a little bit. He likes to joke around with guys and give reporters a little bit of jabs once in a while, which is kind of fun too. You never want like that head coach that's so boring, that never gives you anything. Where you have to just wait for a couple times a year, like Bill Belichick would be just terrible to have as your coach in that way. I mean, he's a great coach, but he's kind of boring to watch all his interviews. If that was your job or if you're really into the team. All right, what does Ben say? If LaFleur asks Pettine to stop playing so far off and Pettine keeps doing the same thing, he'll be gone. Well, I think we'll get to that. I think Pettine's going to be gone no matter what, and we've all talked about that privately, but we'll talk about it on the show too here. However, one last thing about LaFleur that I really loved hearing him say, whereas Mike Pettine, when he was asked about his inside linebackers, he talked about Christian Kirko, and he talked about Chris Barnes, and he talked about Kamal Martin. And now that those three guys were all there, we felt really good about the inside linebacker group. He did not mention my man Ty Summers one time. That was a few weeks ago. It really made me mad, Mike Pettine. But Matt LaFleur yesterday was asked specifically about Chris Barnes from coming out of nowhere, undrafted guy, and now he's your main linebacker. And your Mike linebacker who's taking all the information and doing all that. And that allows Kirksey to be better because he seems to be more comfortable at the will linebacker and not the Mike. And Kamal Martin's there and blah, blah, blah. And Matt LaFleur talked a little bit about those guys. And then he purposely said, but also feel really good about Ty coming in and getting the job done. And that was when I knew that Matt LaFleur gets it. Matt LaFleur should be coach of the year just for saying that, because that means he knows what the hell's going on, because Ty Summers is the man at inside linebacker, and for some reason, the Packers don't play him enough or ever unless guys are hurt.
I think you're spot on. I think the reason why Barnes has taken over for Kirksey at Mike linebacker is because first of all, LaFleur, I think, pushed him to do it. And I will say, Barnes he's not the most athletic guy in the world, but at the same time, he's smart. He's a leader, it seems like, and he's aggressive, and that's not a bad combination. And then you add, Martin, he's inexperienced, but he's aggressive again. If he's going to miss a tackle, he's going to go all out and miss it, And then you have Kirksey, which I think using him at certain spots and not all the time has really helped him. I mean, he's had a couple sacks lately. He had a pick. You know, as long as he's not out there all the time, I think that's a good thing for Kirksey. So I think LaFleur pushed him to do that. And then as far as Ty Summers go, hey, maybe we play New Orleans. Maybe Summers will be back in there based off of covering Kamara and things like that. We'll see what happens. But it was interesting that LaFleur mentioned Ty and I think even if he doesn't play as much this year in the playoffs, I think Ty is going to be competing for that position next year next to Barnes and I think Martin and him are going to split time if anything. But if Summers can show some things, I mean personally I think Summers is as good as Martin is right now, if not a little better, because he's got more speed and he seems to be more intelligent in certain spots. So I think if he takes that next leap, I think it could be Barnes and Summers next year. I really believe that. We'll have to see what happens, but I think LaFleur likes Summers a lot, and he's been great on special teams actually, as of late too.
Right. I mean, Summers is better. He has more awareness than Martin. He's better at identifying what's going on too. I mean, Martin attacks, but sometimes he just shoots a gap and a hole and he's out of the play. And while I like that can sometimes screw up a play, and I like the aggressiveness, I think Summers has that on him. Now, again, the one thing with Ty Summers was that he was not only played 1 year a linebacker in college,
True.
so he's still learning how to play linebacker at this level and, get back into really tackling guys and stuff like that. So that's a big adjustment, but I think he's done it well. And his speed and his smarts he seems to have really good awareness on the field too about what's going on. Cause he doesn't, he's not out of position and he breaks on stuff. And once in a while he'll miss a tackle, but once in a while everybody misses a tackle. So, so I think he, I'm hopeful that the head coach's influence will also make its way to the inside linebacker group to see some more Ty Summers on the field. I like Chris Barnes. He's fine. He's solid in a lot of ways, but he has some limitations. He has some speed limitations, and he can't quite have the same impact that like Summers could, especially not in coverage, that Summers could have in pass coverage. So hopefully they get that all figured out, because I think that could be a key component to playing some of these old quarterbacks in the playoffs. And maybe that's something LaFleur said this too, Bruce, if you recall. I think Ben mentioned it a couple weeks ago. He referenced back to last year's game against the Eagles, how Billy Turner did well against Fletcher Cox. And that was one of the reasons why they decided to start Billy Turner at a guard spot in that game this year. So does he go back to that Saints game if they see the Saints and say, Ty Summers did really well playing the Saints offense? Maybe we need to get him in that week. So maybe it's one of those things too, where, okay, this opponent, we need this guy on the field, and he figures it out.
And I think the thing is I think Ty's improved on his tackling as well. I mean, in the limited time he's been in there, but also on special teams, I think he's done a good job of that. So, I mean, he's got the speed, like you said, he's got the smarts, he's got the aggressiveness, and his tackling is improved. I think it's a great idea to have him more in there if we do play the Saints because of the speed of Kamara. I mean, it makes complete sense to me. And he still did a decent job in the beginning of the year, but I think he's taken a little bit of a jump as well since then. So I think it's a great idea, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, we have to get there first in order to see New Orleans. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So
hey, Lee showed up, and as soon as we start talking about Ty Summers, Lee always jumps in because Lee knows it. Yeah. Well, guess what, Lee? Matt LaFleur knows it too. So I'll tell you what, Bruce, here's my case. I don't know when they decide all this, when they vote on Coach of the Year and all that business, but if Matt LaFleur gets Ty Summers on the field more, he is definitely Coach of the Year.
There you go.
Just for that.
Yeah, absolutely. He's our Coach of the Year, baby.
They're 26-6 in the regular season in 2 seasons in Green Bay. That's crazy. So, I mean, no one else has done that. What is he up? I forget. Like I didn't look at the graphics the last time, but all-time best starts for head coaches.
Yeah, George Seifert's the only one that was better.
And he took over a championship team
He did.
from Bill Walsh, right? So,
Right.
I mean, it wasn't the same situation.
No.
And
Yep.
he had a really good defense too
That's right.
in San
Yep.
Francisco those years.
Yep.
So, Matt LaFleur, I'm sorry I was hard on you in the offseason. Sorry I put you down last year a little bit at times, but you've proven to me. You've won me over now. I have been LaFleured. I currently have as much admiration for you as I carried for Mike McCarthy all those years. I'm just kidding. No, I think he's an upgrade from McCarthy. You know, that's another thing. It's like, as Packers fans, before we go, just kind of put this out there. As Packers fans, we had Mike McCarthy for 13 years, right? 13 years. And all we knew before that was Sherman and Ray Rhodes and just right?
Yep.
So this guy's different and he's an upgrade. We just didn't know any better. We were sitting here on the Packers and we're like, they're still winning and they're still competitive. And so this is fine. He's a good coach. Is he a good coach? I don't know what the Dallas experiment this year tells you.
You know, I tell you what. I mean, I don't necessarily like Mark Murphy, excuse me, but at the same time, you got to give him props at this point. And I hate to say it, but you do. I mean, he's hired the right guy. It looks like at this point. You know, Goody, is kind of, we don't know yet, but he's made some weird decisions in the draft. But at the same time, you always got to wait 3 years to figure out if he made the right decisions, right? But it's not like Gutekunst hasn't been horrible, but at the same time, he hasn't been wonderful either. So, I mean, that's still out yet, but you can't really complain about what Murphy did with hiring that LaFleur. I mean, he made the right decision. I mean, we could have what's his name from New England. What was his name?
Oh, Josh McDaniels. That would not have worked.
That would have been a disaster.
Yeah.
Now, especially the way you look at it right now. So, I mean, he made the right decision. You got to give him props for that. So, I will say, thank you, Mark Murphy, for making the right decision because he did. At this point, you got to say that he did. So,
yeah. I think it's a great choice and a great place to end. Matt LaFleur, if it were up to us, you're coach of the year last year and this year, back-to-back coach of the years. We'll say that. But if you can get one of them, that would at least be something. How about this year? Why not?
And that's the other thing. They should be looking at coach of the year and, just because look at both years and say, hey, you should have gotten one last year. But now we got to give it to him this year because he's 26-6 in 2 years. That's the thing. I mean, I know they're not supposed to look at it that way, but they should.
Yeah, I think they should factor it in. You're right. That's a good point. Kind of like that Pro Bowl factor for players and stuff. Comes kind of a year later sometimes.
Yep. As
long as they keep up good production. So, all right, Bruce, thanks for hanging and talking Matt LaFleur tonight and a couple other things. Yes, Ben, I'm not going to read your downer note here before we go off because I don't believe it. Ty Summers is the man. He's going to show up in the playoffs and might even be the Super Bowl that he shows up in. Ty Summers.
That'd be interesting.
It's the man.
Yeah.
God, he's so good. 7th round pick. Just think about this, Bruce. The Packers could have inside linebackers starters next year, a guy who was undrafted and a 7th round pick as their starting backers on the inside.
Yep. Hey, I'll tell you what, if I shouldn't say this because I'm knock on wood, but if we make the Super Bowl, I'm already making a prediction. Okay. We're going to play the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl if we make it. Okay. And Ty Summers is going to sack Mahomes in the last play of the game for us to win it at like the 13-yard line. And we're going to win it by 3.
That is very specific.
Summers. He's going to make the play to win the Super Bowl.
That is a very specific prediction, Bruce. Wow. Now I thought you were going like this. I thought you were saying Ty Summers is going to sack Mahomes for a 40-yard loss because Mahomes keeps running back and thinking he can get away from him, but he's not getting away from Ty Summers.
There you go. Maybe that's what I'll have to do. But I know I'm way ahead of the game, so let's just win. Let's just win the first game that we have first before we get all excited about that. But anyway.
All right. Well, everybody jump on with us Friday if you like. We're just going to talk about NFC playoffs and talk about who the Packers are going to demolish the first time they get to play after a week off. Thanks again, Bruce.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite.